Hello, I'm Randall Carlson, the host of Squaring the Circle. Recently, I had the pleasure of sitting down with an old friend, Scott Engle, and a colleague and friend of his, Jonathan Wickham, a documentary filmmaker, to hear about their journey to Ethiopia in 2023. Scott has been a student of the Book of Enoch for many years, and Jonathan's father served in Ethiopia during World War II. As a result of finding an old photograph of his father, Jonathan was inspired to undertake a voyage in an effort to uncover his father's story during the war, about which he knew very little. The discovery of the photograph was followed by several years of research in which Jonathan learned that in 1941 his father was a 24-year-old British sergeant who participated with British forces allied with Ethiopian resistance fighters to expel the Italian fascists under Mussolini who were occupying the country. This alliance was successful in driving the fascists out of Ethiopia at the Battle of Gondar, their final stronghold. Jonathan made the decision to visit Ethiopia to follow in his father's footsteps and recover the story of his wartime experiences. Knowing of Scott's interest in Ethiopian history and his longtime study of the Book of Enoch, Jonathan invited Scott to accompany him in a journey to trace the history behind this little-known series of events and his father's role. The Book of Enoch is an extraordinary work in the traditions of apocalyptic and apocryphal literature. It emerged from obscurity through a number of ancient references that traced its origins back as far as the 4th century before the Common Era. Down to the present day, it has been preserved as part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. Its modern recovery we owe to Scottish traveler and Freemason James Bruce, who spent 6 years in Abyssinia, the former name for Ethiopia, who returned to Europe with 3 copies of the book written in the Ethiopian variant of an ancient Semitic language. Jonathan and Scott's adventure commenced in the immediate aftermath of a bloody civil war. The instability still reigning required them to hire AK-47 wielding guards as they trekked and drove the battlegrounds and sites of resistance which Jonathan's father took part in. In addition to a grand history lesson, we are introduced to some of the extraordinary temple architecture and the modern rituals and traditions that have deep roots into the Ethiopian past. Scott and Jonathan share some striking photos and visuals of their travels. Jonathan's book, 10 Days That Shook My World, Searching for My Father in War-Torn Ethiopia, which chronicles their adventures, is going to be released near the end of March 2026. So join us on Squaring the Circle for this interesting and stimulating discussion that will also serve as a prologue to later explorations into the history, meaning, and symbolism of the extraordinary Book of Enoch. 2 vials, not one, but 2 vials. This is the Apollo oil. Yeah, purchase this, there we go, purchase this online. You get the extra bonus is you get an image of me on the label. Now, of course, this was in my younger years. Okay, maybe not quite shipped in bubble wrap so nothing happens to it. Look at this. There we go. I love this salve. I love the salve. So I've gone ahead and got myself a supply that's going to last for a while. Just in case of the zombie apocalypse, I'll have some saved back because I would not want to have to exist in a post-apocalyptic world without my CBD from the God Salve. All right, Scott, good to see you again, man.
Randall?
Yeah, we go back
Way back.
35 years maybe,
Probably.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's still just as good looking as he was when I met him.
Oh, you're kind. Jonathan, hello.
Yeah, it's very good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
I've heard so much about you.
That could be bad or good, but hopefully most of it was good, right?
Oh, it was all good.
All good. Okay. Well, where's my wife? We need her to hear that. So today we're going to be talking with you guys primarily about an excursion you made in 2023.
That's correct.
To Ethiopia.
That's right.
And how long were you in Ethiopia?
Well, we were there for 10 days, which is how come I called my book 10 Days That Shook My World, although I also am paying homage to John Reed's famous book, 10 Days That Shook the World, which is his account of the October Revolution. But we were, in a sense, going Ethiopia. It was a troubled place. And
I understand.
We actually, I finally got the sort of go ahead to go there from a friend of mine who was already in Gondar, and he said, come in March. And so I immediately sent a text to Scott here.
Of all people.
Yeah, and I sent him a text saying, I know this is short notice, but if you want to find out about James Bruce, his search for the Nile, and how he came across the lost Book of Enoch, this is your chance because I'm going to Ethiopia. And he said
he hit all the right buttons. And
so how long did it take you to decide?
About 5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, we got together shortly after that. Mm-hmm. I think mainly for me to tell him why I was going, which was that.
So why, out of all people, Scott? You guys previously knew each other.
Yeah.
And in fact, you had journeyed together, right?
Yeah, we went to Egypt, further up the Nile. Mm-hmm. 2000, I think, is when we worked out it was. Yeah.
On the tracks of a mummy.
That's right. Yeah, there was a mummy here in Atlanta at the Carlson Museum
at Emory University, right?
Scott.
Yeah.
There was the thought that this was a royal mummy. And so the question was, well, was that the case? And that's what the film was going to be about.
You were with CNN at the time, weren't you?
No, I was that was for Nova.
Okay.
That was for Nova.
Yeah, they were curious about the story.
Yeah.
So did it turn out that the mummy was royal?
Well, yes and no. The thought was that DNA was going to provide the answer, or a sort of a definitive answer. But they've discovered that getting DNA out of mummies is a problematic thing. So ultimately, the circumstantial evidence suggests that yes, that this is the style of mummification, the pose of the mummy. He's got his arms crossed. It all seemed to point to that. They did X-rays, which they compared between that mummy and Seti the First, which would have been his father. I'm sorry, his son. This is Ramses the First. Followed by Seti the First, followed by Ramses the Second, the guy we've all heard of.
So where's that mummy now?
It's back in Egypt.
Okay.
It was returned by the Carlson Museum to Egypt, so you can now see it at Luxor.
Mm-hmm. So now I would have to fly almost halfway around the world, where how many years ago I could have gone 10, 15 minutes, driven over here and seen it every. I missed my chance. That's what I'm getting out of this. I had my chance and I blew it.
Well, I still have some more mummies over there, so you're not out of luck. But yeah, that was actually a big deal because Emory immediately agreed to repatriate this mummy. And that made the Egyptian Antiquities Department very happy, and that put Emory in very high standings with them. And they were given, I think, for future
they've had
tours, Egyptian tours. They were given like first bids on where things would come from.
Well,
they would come from Egypt. So Emory got very good standing with the Egyptian Department of Antiquities.
Well, good for Emory.
But I want to backtrack just on when Jonathan sent me the text to about Ethiopia, and I decided pretty quickly this is right up my alley, But then I had to break this to my wife, and I said, I told her, I wanted to go to Ethiopia, and she said, "You want to go where? Isn't there a war going on there?" Because there is actually. But don't worry, there was a ceasefire, and everything's going to be fine. So I had to diplomatically explain this to my wife, Krista, that we'll be okay, but this is a trip I really feel I should go on, and it certainly was.
So did she come around to support your trip, or was it okay?
Yeah, kind of reluctantly, but she gave me her blessings.
Was she relieved upon your return?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because you guys, we've got some photographs we're going to look at here shortly about your adventures over there. And my impression here is it was very much an adventure.
Oh, it was. Yeah. It started off, the adventure began when I found this photograph.
Let's hear about that.
Yeah. So it was 2019 and it was June and my mother had just died, literally. I was on the way over to see her, and my brother calls me when I get to the airport there and says, "You know what, unfortunately she's passed away." And so I was looking through her stuff. A friend of mine had said to me, "You're never really ready to become an orphan," and that's true. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking for something. You have this desire to hold on to something. And I remembered these photographs I'd seen of my father and my mother, their wedding. And so I had this in my mind, and I was going through these. It was this old doctor's bag, the ones that they used to put their sort of stethoscope in.
Yeah, I can visualize it perfectly.
Okay, and I opened it, and I found these photographs, which I knew were around. And I started pulling them out, and I couldn't find, the ones. And I came across this envelope, and these ones were bigger. And I opened it, and the first one showed this truck, this military truck in Africa. Obviously, there's a baobab tree behind it. And the one underneath that is 4 guys. The guy in the middle, in the front, is my father, and he's in military uniform. And I had never seen him in military uniform in my life before.
And there he was.
And I knew next to nothing about his military career. Oh. Because like most World War II veterans, they were very reticent to talk about what happened to them.
Can we look at that picture?
Sure.
Let's do. I got it right here. Let's see if I can...
Yeah, he's looking at me with this expression, this slight wry smile, as if to say, what took you so long? That was my impression.
And you should also mention you grew up partly in Africa.
That's right. Well, it's the beginning of the Africa, how my family got to Africa. Yes,
military.
That's right. He was newly arrived in Africa. He was supposed. This is okay. So he arrived in what's now Malawi and is now Nyasaland. Was then Nyasaland and was now Malawi. He arrived there in probably about mid-1941.
So the war was over.
Oh yeah, the war was happening. Yeah.
But there's it took me a minute. Yeah. I'm sorry. There he is.
That's right. He's the one in the middle.
Let me put my glasses on here.
Looking straight at me. Yeah. This is probably in Nairobi, as best as I can tell, because it's obvious.
This is what year?
This is 1941. This would be
right early in the war.
This would be about September 1941.
When did the Americans join the war?
Well, as you'll hear, they were going to Ethiopia, and they liberated. The Battle of Gondar kicked Mussolini out of Ethiopia, and so Ethiopia became the first country to be liberated from the Axis powers. And that was 10 days before what significant event?
Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
That's right. Which meant it kind of got, nobody knew about it.
Right.
Forgot about it.
Yeah.
Because it was, and also there was already, Rommel was already in threatening Egypt. And in fact, Mussolini said to his general in Gondar, it's going badly for all the Allies. Hitler is about to take Moscow, and already the Japanese were they had moved into parts of they were already in China, and they were moving into further south, and then next stop is going to be Pearl Harbor. So it was a bad time for the Allies. It was probably the darkest days of.
So you mentioned Gondar, so let's go back to there, and we can see Gondar right up there at the top.
That's
so
right.
I want to mention, as you explained it to me, Mussolini was trying to take over the entire Horn of Africa.
Yeah,
as a base.
He literally had.
And Ethiopia was like the last piece of the puzzle.
Well, Eritrea was Italian, so he moved into Ethiopia. That's in October 1935, and he also went into Somalia. Somalia was Italian too, but that chunk above where you see Berbera, that was Somaliland, which was a British protectorate, and he took that. So he basically got all of.
So this right here, this
bit further to the right, the grey area is Somaliland, right there.
Oh, okay.
That's up to the Gulf of Aden. So he's got all that.
I see.
Eritrea,
okay.
Ethiopia, Somaliland, and Somalia is all
got
Ethiopian.
it. Okay, yeah, got it.
And so the British had to react very fast, and they came up from the south, from Kenya, from Sudan into Eritrea, and there was a third sort of guerrilla force more. It was run by this guy, Major Ord Wingate, and you will have heard of Wingate if you know anything about the action in Burma, because he was responsible for the long-range penetration groups that would go and fight behind Japanese lines. That was his. He was very much a. Churchill liked him because he used to think outside the box, and of course the rest of the army hated him because they thought he was, a loose cannon, literally. But he pioneered his guerrilla tactics in Ethiopia. Anyway, the last area that was still in Mussolini's hands was the area up in the highlands around Gondar, and he was saying to his general there, hold on, because Rommel is coming into Egypt, and we can, when he captures Egypt, the whole empire is back on again. We're going to hold on to our East African Empire, is what he called it.
So the Ethiopians, though, they rallied, didn't they? I mean, they've done that. I mean, they're known for being warriors when they need to be, right?
Legendary fierce warriors.
Fierce warriors.
Only country that's never been African country that has never been colonized.
Good point. Yeah, for only African country that was never colonized.
That's correct. Yeah. Except for the brief occupation by the Italians.
That's Other than that, and they got kicked out by your dad went in there and kicked them out, right?
Along with the
coalition.
The Ethiopians called them the Arbegnotch, and it means patriot fighters.
Okay.
And so those were the groups that formed around Wingate. And actually Haile Selassie came in with them too. He'd been in exile in the UK, but he came back. And he actually, so he left Ethiopia in May of 1936, and on May of 1941, he came back with a motorcade. He was in the car and actually had, and some of these troops that the guerrilla troops, they led the way into Addis Ababa.
Okay.
And that left Gondar still to be overcome.
So this is why you guys were in Gondar, because you were following in the footsteps of your father.
That's right. Yeah. So once I had, the first thing I had to discover actually was what unit was he in, because I didn't know. I mean, I got that picture, and I knew he was in the artillery, but I didn't know what unit it was. And to get access to the records in the UK National Archives, I had to, that's like the magic key, you need to know the name of the thing. That way you can find the war diary and the records of the group. And I did find through a history book, I came across this very cryptic sentence where they were describing the situation in Gondar, and they said that it was basically up in the north, there's a very narrow mountain pass which gets into the city from the north. And that's the only road. There are only two roads into Gondar. One is through the north, through those mountains, and there's another one through the south, through equally narrow passes. And so they said, we got to have more artillery here because, we're outnumbered. And it said that there was a sentence which said, so there was a pause while they waited for the 54th NY Field Battery to arrive. And I was born in what was then Nyasaland, and on the cars you would have NY and then a number, and so NY, it's got to be Nyasaland. So that's what I knew. Once I got that, I could go to the UK archives. I found the war diary, and more importantly, too, I found that incredible artillery map, which you also have a picture of, which shows where they were on the day of the battle and what their targets were.
We'll pull that up in a minute here. Should we? You've got some other photographs, too, from that era. Let's pause here for a second.
Yeah.
There you are, searching for my father in war-torn Ethiopia. Now where's that picture taken? I think we have that coming up more higher res, but
that's actually very close to where the artillery battery was positioned. Over to the picture right is Gondar, and this is on a ridge to the east of the city.
Okay.
Where they could it was the Italians weren't expecting to come there because I described there were these other two roads, north and south. This was east, so they surprised them in the end by coming. They found a track down there which they could make accessible.
Okay, and then that guy.
Yeah, there's Scott right there.
Guilty.
And there's the village that came out. Well, some of the village. You can also see that there's a couple of guys with AK-47s on their shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
The one of them that's over my right shoulder is actually the guard that we hired because, as Scott mentioned, the ceasefire happened in November and we're there in March.
Okay.
And if you wanted to go, what that meant was if you wanted to go outside the city, you had to have your own security because things were still a little fragile piece. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go on. We'll come back to that guy. That's James Bruce, and he has an important role to play. We'll come back to that. So what do we got here?
So this is them on their way, probably coming up either from the coast into Ethiopia, or it could have been while they actually mobilized in Kenya first and then took a ship round to a port called Massawa, which is on the Red Sea, and from there came and drove up to Gondar.
Now this is the very truck that they used in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Is it really?
No, look to me.
It probably is an American truck. I mean,
that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. Hey, I think doesn't that look like a scene out of?
Could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right. So
if you go to the next picture,
is this your father here?
I don't think so.
I can't tell from here.
No,
okay.
But that's his unit in the truck.
Yeah.
So he might have been the one taking the picture. Who knows?
Well, they came from him, the pictures. So
Okay.
yeah, the next one. So this is where we were standing, Scott and I, with the villagers around us.
Okay.
That's where that is. So this is Iber Ridge, and they're pointing towards Gondar, and this is one battery. You can see 4 guns sort of going echelon back, and there must be another one out of the frame on the left that's pointing the same direction. So this is on that map. You'll see 2 different sort of setups, and literally they came down there the day before. They came down this track which we followed them down, and
the villagers.
The artillery unit, the 54th Mass.
Okay.
They came down this same track that we did. We followed them down that track.
Okay,
and,
I see.
And they had arrived the day before the battle here, and they set up for November 27th.
So were the Italians shooting back?
No, because the Italians had counted on them either coming through that pass or coming up from the south. They weren't counting on them coming, and they had no air cover at that point, so they couldn't see what was going on there. Their one aircraft that was still functioning was grounded for those couple of days.
So would these have been considered long-range guns?
Oh yeah,
in that day, yeah.
The maximum range. This is called a 25-pounder howitzer, and it has a range of up to about 9 miles.
Okay, and these guys were about 8 miles away.
They were about 6 miles from that church, which we're going to see later on.
Okay.
That Scott was talking about.
Okay.
And then 9 miles from the furthest target, which was
okay.
And those were where the Italian defenses were, and they would have been similar groups there, i.e., artillery, machine guns.
So your dad foiled the plans of Mussolini, it sounds like.
Along with the Ethiopian patriots, because they always get shortchanged in a lot of these accounts. The groups who were fighting.
I got it.
From Ethiopia.
Yeah. All right. What do we got here?
Well, this is that view which you said you like, the panoramic view. I think that's what that is, and I think that's what my father took. So it's on. You go along that road which goes into Gondar. On one side, it has this spectacular, like, I call it my Grand Canyon view. I mean, it's got that sort of, it drops off very severely, doesn't it? I mean, you go to this edge of this.
Well, Randall, with your geological knowledge, what is this the area of where, like, the African Rift? Well, I've heard that term. You would know. What geologically is
this is not the rift here. This is not the rift, but I'm definitely seeing some pretty major erosion there, I would say. And I'm just thinking I'm going to have to do a little bit of research onto the geology, because I'm sure there's an interesting story there. No doubt. Because that whole region has gone through some extraordinary changes just within the last 20,000 years, 30,000 years. The whole North African, the Sahara Desert's young.
Yeah.
I mean, in the geological time scale, it's just not even an eye blink. It's just, it was a fairly lush place 8,000 years ago. And then it was desertified somewhat earlier than that. And then earlier than that, it was relatively lush with huge rivers and lakes all over. And so I'm sure Ethiopia was part of that whole shift. Because we see on the map there was a lake, which I would be willing to bet. Here we go. We're right.
That's Lake Tana.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably a much larger lake once upon a time. And it looks to me like, what are these? What are these?
Well, those are the rivers. Gondar is just up to the northeast there. You can just see it on the top of the map.
So this is essentially a large catchment basin here, isn't it? And all of these rivers are feeding into it.
Yeah, well, the source of the Blue Nile is
Tana. And then where is the discharge point that then becomes the Nile?
It's down in the south.
Okay.
It's they call it the Abe, A-B-B-A-Y.
Down here somewhere?
Yeah, right there. It comes out. You can see it coming. Well, actually, but there you go. That's
there.
It. Yeah,
okay.
that's it. So it comes out, and then it kind of goes south for a while, and then it curls west and goes up.
Yeah.
And meets the White Nile at Khartoum.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so that's what Bruce was. He was a little late. His book is called Travels to Discover the Source of the Nile.
But he wasn't the first.
Pedro País, who was a Portuguese Jesuit who arrived there in 150 years before Bruce. He was the guy who found it.
So now, is it the lake here? Is this it?
That's it.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in the highlands. Yep. So I'm going to do a little investigation here, but I will bet money that at one point this was a much larger body of water.
Yeah.
And was probably overflow then of this lake that led to these huge floods down the Nile at the end of the last ice age, where it was running 100 to 200 feet above the modern floodplain.
Well, interesting. Also, the Blue Nile produces like 70% of the flow into the Nile because it's rains that feed the rain season.
So this is where it all starts, folks, right there with this lake. And
right.
let me get the pronunciation of that lake.
Tana.
Just Tana.
Lake Tana.
Tana.
Yeah.
Okay, Tana. That's easy enough.
Yeah.
I can even pronounce that.
And Gondar is at about 7,000 feet.
It's what?
Gondar is about 7,000 feet.
7,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, based on the topography there, that would probably make sense. And you've mentioned James Bruce a couple of times. Let's look at him. And besides the fact that I think he looks like he's wearing lipstick, which might have been the fashion in those days, I don't know, but he was actually quite an audacious explorer, right?
Yeah, he was. Well, the amazing thing is, do you remember what we discovered in that museum in Gondar?
Yeah, I remember items that he had brought as,
right.
Gifts to the royal family. And
there's this amazing pewter dish.
Huge dish.
With what looks like thistles on it. And Bruce was Scottish. So
of course,
it made sense that this was a gift that he gave. And he actually gave it to... He was called Ras Mikhail Sehul, and he was actually Ras means prince. Right. So he was from Tigray, but he was actually the guy who was who was emperor at that time. He was the man in charge in the imperial capital, which Gondar was at that time. And so Bruce was wanting to get on his good side because, he wanted to have... He actually was concerned that he not get killed while he was there,
That's always a good guideline when you're traveling, yeah.
So, how many years was he there?
He was about 2. He got there in 1770.
Did he actually learn the language?
Oh, yeah. Actually, he spoke fluent Tigrayan. And Geese even, which is the sort of medieval version. Yeah. No, he was a real scholar. He's a real, what do you call him? A Renaissance man. He had lots of skills. He was a great horseman.
I was just about to ask, was he a horseman?
Yeah,
I'm just about to ask because
In fact, the deal that he made with Ras Mikhail Sehul, he made him an honorary member of the Imperial Cavalry while he was there, and that became his kind of passport to go wherever he wanted. He had the blessing of the
Now, there was something that we know that he was a Freemason. There's a record of the lodge even that he was initiated in. Did you want to address that? And then I have a question, which is that, did he arrive in Ethiopia and discover parallel system of initiation by any chance? I know there are stories about American and English explorers, Scottish explorers coming to North America and discovering that the Native American tribes, many of them had rituals very similar to the Masonic rituals. And that wouldn't surprise me if there were overlaps, but of course, I guess you haven't studied into Freemasonry too much, so you perhaps might have seen something that would have been very similar, but not necessarily recognized that it was Masonic. But that's something I'm wondering now.
Well, that's fascinating, and I have,
because you did say possibly a Templar connection.
Yeah, there are some theories about the churches of Lalibela that they've detected certain Templar imagery there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the source of that. I just heard rumors, and I've seen little bits and pieces.
Okay.
But and those were hundreds of years before Bruce arrived. But I'm quite curious that knowing he was a Mason, and they had a tradition already in Masonry of initiations and Enoch. And
yeah.
I wonder how much in his mind, on the surface, he claimed he was going to look for the source of the Blue Nile. But I wonder if he also had some kind of inner radar detector that could lead him where he ended up discovering the Book of Enoch.
Well, and the legend of Enoch plays an important part in the Masonic ritual.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole antediluvian sequence, and Enoch's position within that, his connection with Lamech and Methuselah and Noah. That's all part of this grand mythic pageantry, which it sounds like, from everything I've been learning from you, at least some element of that is preserved in the Ethiopian traditions.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did come back with 4 copies?
No, 3.
3 copies. Right. Okay, so he found 3 copies of Enoch, so he was obviously
I'm curious how that
looking for...
Did he know enough Geese to look at the Ethiopian canon and flip through the pages and go, oh my gosh, that's Enoch? Or did he have some guide? I mean, that is, to me, a big mystery. I'd like to get to the roots of that. But it's no coincidence, in my mind, that he was a Mason. There was this Enoch tradition in Masonry. And lo and behold, he finds the quote-unquote lost Book of Enoch as he searches for the source of the Blue Nile. And that's not the only text he brought back. He brought back these extremely valuable Gnostic texts. It's called the Bruce Codex.
Okay.
These were some of the first Gnostic texts to be made available to the general awareness of Western scholars. And he purchased those in Upper Egypt, not in Ethiopia. So the Bruce Codex is almost of equal value to the Book of Enoch in terms of Gnostic scholarship. The Bruce Codex is a treasure trove of some of the first Gnostic texts that scholars got their hands on. So he brought back some really valuable, things that have just been a treasure for scholars. The Book of Enoch and the Bruce Codex, which has these Gnostic texts. So again, back to Jonathan sending me that text. When I looked at the text and I see the word Enoch and James Bruce, and do you want to go with me? And boom, I'm on that trip. And so I had to get ready. I had a short, 3 weeks or something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't
long. Once
long.
I got past
I remember
the negotiations with my wife, and you're going where?
Yeah.
Then I had to do research, and so I started diving into, okay, so at this point, all I knew about Ethiopia, I knew 2 things. I knew that the Book of Enoch was discovered there, and I'd been studying the Book of Enoch since my youth. I've been immersed in just the whole Western esoteric tradition, and Enoch is a big part of that, as anyone knows who's studied, has any familiarity with the Western esoteric tradition. So I've been studying that book for ages, on and off, not like consistently and whatever. But that was one data point. The other thing I knew about Ethiopia is that Rastafarians worship Haile Selassie, the last emperor of Ethiopia. And that's always been like, what is going on with that? That they literally worship him as a god. And that's all I knew. the Rastafarians, and they looked at Ethiopia as like the promised land. Haile Selassie is God, and that the Book of Enoch was discovered in Ethiopia, and that's all I knew. So I started doing a deep dive on everything I could get a hold of. Watching YouTube documentaries and on the whole this stuff, learning about the Ethiopian church and the traditions in Ethiopia to this day. And lo and behold, I discovered so many, one amazing thing after another, like the Ark of the Covenant. Every Ethiopian believes that they have the Ark of the Covenant, that it was brought to Ethiopia in biblical times. No other country in the world has that tradition. The Ethiopian people trace their lineage to King Solomon. Every royal dynasty of Ethiopia they're called the Solomonic dynasty, and that Haile Selassie was the last of the Solomonic dynasty, and they go all the way back to King Solomon. Where does that come from? Where does that tradition come from? And I started learning all these things that just kind of blew my mind about Ethiopia. I realized, okay, I've uncovered something here I was not aware of, the extent of just this land of mystery and
well, you know that the Freemasons trace their origin back to King Solomon and the building of King Solomon's temple and the three Grand Masters who were presiding.
So and there's that connection right there. And there's James Bruce heading to Ethiopia.
And there is most definitely a Templar connection now. And with Scott Wolter's new research and work that we interviewed a few weeks ago when he was here, really does show that there was a Templar Masonic connection 200 to 300 years earlier than traditional, I'll say that established accounts of the origin of Freemasonry recognize, because there's legends enough that would indicate that it goes back at least to the Middle Ages and the building of the cathedrals and to the time of the Templars. But the problem is that the Masonic order had to exist in secrecy because of charges of heresy. I mean, they saw what happened, the fate of the Templars. And so in order to avoid that themselves, they went very secret. And it was not until like post-scientific enlightenment and Renaissance that they felt comfortable enough to actually come out of the woodwork and consolidate. So in 1717, you had the consolidation of 4 lodges throughout the British Isles that had existed more or less independently and pretty much secretly. And in 1717, they came out and consolidated as the Grand Lodge of Britain. But there are scattered pieces of evidence, like the initiation of Elias Ashmole in, what was it, mid to late 1600s. So, and there's other circumstantial evidence that they would have existed back to the Middle Ages, and their formation of the guild lodges was roughly equivalent or corresponding in time to the Templar, the formation of the Templar order in the 1100s and early 1200s. But again, what was missing was documentary evidence to confirm that. Now, what Scott brought is not confirmation or proof, but it's very highly indicative of a connection going back to the 12 or 1300s between the Templar order and between the Masonic order and the royal families of Scotland, the Weems and the...
Well, that's precisely when the churches of Lalibela were built.
Isn't that interesting?
Precisely that.
Precisely there, yeah.
But going back to this national, I don't want to say myth, but belief that they trace back to King Solomon. The national epic of Ethiopia is called the Kabra Nagast.
Okay.
And it was written,
Glory of the Kings. 14th
century, 15th century. But it has the entire story of the Solomonic dynasty and how it arrived in Ethiopia. And the story goes, in the Book of Kings, or in the story of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Yeah,
I was just about to ask, where was the Queen of Sheba? Was she from Ethiopia? She was Ethiopian.
Mm-hmm.
So all kinds of...
It's one of the most famous romantic stories in all of the Bible.
Right.
And she hears about this wise king in Jerusalem, and she goes with her train of attendants to Jerusalem to meet this wise man. And and then their romance is in the Song of Solomon. In mystical Jewish circles, that's considered to be the most sacred book of the entire Bible.
Okay.
Kabbalistically, it's key to the whole thing. But anyway, so the Kebra Nagast picks up kind of where the biblical story leaves off. So out of this romance they had,
she goes back to Ethiopia,
and she has a baby.
Mm.
She's pregnant
From King Solomon.
From King Solomon, and his name is Menelik.
Menelik. Okay, so there's Menelik.
A child named Menelik.
Yeah.
He becomes the first patriarch of the Solomonic royal dynasty of Ethiopia. So every ruler from then on traces their lineage to King Solomon through Menelik. But the story doesn't end there. Menelik grows up, according to the Kebra Nagast, this national epic of Ethiopia, at around the age of 19. Okay. Yeah. He wants to meet his famous father in Jerusalem. So his wife, his mother, Sheba,
allows him to
go, gives him a train of attendants with camels and donkeys, whatever, sets him off and to go meet his father. He arrives in Jerusalem, and he's there at court for a period of time. And do you remember any more details?
Well, he basically wants to absorb some of his father's wisdom to learn that, and he spends about a year, from what I remember, and then he basically decides, okay, I got it.
But all these kind of machinations occur at the court.
Well, then he said he wants to go back to Ethiopia, but he wants to take something valuable with him, and he fastens on the Ark
of the Covenant.
And by then he's made alliances with prominent family members, key people in the church hierarchy or royal hierarchy
of Solomon's hierarchy.
Yes. So they're going to go with him, and he basically gives them the idea, hey, we want to take the Ark with us.
Okay.
And so he lets, rather than him be
somehow through subterfuge,
exactly.
He ends up with the Ark,
and they go back
to Ethiopia.
Right. And this is before now, of course, the destruction of the temple.
Yeah, but this is during the time of the King Solomon.
So
this is hundreds of years before the destruction.
So when the Romans destroyed the temple, were they perhaps looking for the Ark?
Well, wait a minute. There's two destructions of the temple.
Right. So the Romans were the second.
There's what's called the first temple and the second temple.
Yeah.
The first temple, the Romans didn't exist at this time.
Right.
This is Nebuchadnezzar,
Babylonians.
This is 579 BC.
Yeah. So this
Rome
is
just a little tiny
600 years, 700 years before Rome.
Yeah, before the destruction of the second temple, which is 70 AD. So the Babylonians destroyed the first temple of Solomon, and take prisoners, take captives, slaves, and whatever, and that's the destruction of the first temple. So there are counter rumors that the Ark of the Covenant was taken when the first temple was destroyed. But according to the Kebra Nagast, it was taken while Solomon was still alive to Ethiopia. And it was never taken by the Babylonians. And Graham Hancock goes into all these different legends. And so anyway, so that's how the Ark arrives in Ethiopia, and according to the Kebra Nagast.
Yeah, and interestingly, so one of the churches in Gondar, the most famous church in Gondar, is called Debre Birhan Selassie. Debre Birhan was another city in a, I guess, ecclesiastical city in Ethiopia. Originally, it was built to be the new home of the Ark.
Right. Yeah, that was in the video.
Right. So, but it didn't. The Ark was. They weren't going to let it go from Aksum, so they brought a replica of the Ark from Birhan, which was the other city, to that church in Gondar, which is the most famous church.
And
there.
you guys visited that church.
That's right.
So we'll be seeing pictures of it here, photos. Yeah, okay.
And what's interesting about it is in the I'm pretty sure it's in the 19th century. There was a Mahdiist invasion from Sudan. So the Mahdi, we know the Mahdi have killed Gordon of Khartoum. This is the one.
These are
successors.
The Muslim warriors for Allah, for the faith. We're trying to take over Ethiopia because it was Christian.
Well, it was also they were in
convert all the Christians
and they were allied with the British too, which meant that they were not. Anyway, they, as you said, they invaded Ethiopia and they sacked Gondar. They burned all the churches except for Debre Birhan, and the legend was that they were arriving with their torches at Debre Birhan to burn it, and the swarm of bees came and drove them away. And that church is I mean, has these amazing portraits of saints of Mary, the whole royal. I mean, the whole family.
Yeah, the family.
But interestingly, the reason we went there, because, I mean, I was there to find out where my father, where he'd been in these places. And on that artillery map, Debre Birhan is marked there. And so I knew that from there we could access, there was a path that would lead us to where the first ridge, which was Defecha Ridge. Okay, so that's the one, that one there with the square on it. You're right. You landed right on it.
Right here.
Yeah, and the Debre Birhan is just a bit beyond it. Right there, actually, those words that you've got the arrow on, that says Debre Birhan. So that's where we were, and that's where we got our first guards, because we were going to go out of the city. So we had these two guys with AK-47s to be with us and to make sure we didn't get into trouble. And so we walked from Debre Birhan to where that square is, and that looks, it was actually pretty vertical. Yeah. It was a real hike uphill. And these guys, these Ethiopian guards who were with, they just went up. I mean, they didn't kind of zigzag. It was like it was Alamu and Johannes were the two. And Alamu was the older guy, and he always led. And so you'd get behind him, and he'd have his AK-47 over his shoulder like this, and he's kind of climbing up the mountain. And so there we are. This is on. That was actually day 3. Mm-hmm. We arrived day 1. Day 2 was the Fasilides. Day 3 we went up there to Debre Birhan and on to Defecha Ridge. And
is that the day we walked by the funeral?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So their target where the Italians were holed up was over here somewhere.
That was one of them. They had 4 targets. They had that's the 9-miler.
That's the 9-mile. And so your father was here.
No, he's over to the right where it says, you see, there you go.
That's
where he is.
Okay.
That's Iba Ridge, and you see that dotted line which goes up. That's the track. That you can see going all the way up to where the road is right at the top, coming across and going off the map.
Okay.
That's about 13 miles, just to give you a sense.
Okay.
And so that's what. The first day we went to Defecha Ridge, in other words, the target that they were aiming at, the first square that you pointed at.
Up here?
No, down that
here.
one. That's it. That's the feature. That's where we went, and we found the remains of the Italian blockhouse there. In fact, found 2 of them. You remember when the first one was kind of almost overgrown, and the last one was further down.
Is that where we found that where the cannon rounds actually hit the walls and there were still holes in the walls? That was
Debre Birhan Church, because when we were at the church, the gatekeeper of the church, our guide, who we see talking, he found out that his father was one of these patriot fighters, Ethiopian patriot fighters. and he said that a shell from the artillery had hit the outer wall of the church. Churches in Ethiopia always have walls around them, sort of like fortresses. And they took us around, and there was this kind of blackened part of the wall. It hadn't been destroyed. So it wouldn't have been a 25-pounder that had hit it, because those shells would have destroyed that one.
Yeah.
But they had some other smaller. The reason that they wanted these 25-pounders that my father and the 54th Nyasaland field battery were because of the size. They had smaller guns which could be taken apart and put on mules, and they'd sent some of those, and that could have been what caused that. But that's where we went up and found the first actual evidence of the Italian defenses. And I think we were probably the first people in 80 years to actually investigate the battlefield like that.
Well, we should probably look at some photographs.
Yeah, sure. Like when we go down that pathway that I pointed out on the map, that's basically what we should look at. Well, this is Fasilides Castle. It's Gondar was actually the first permanent imperial city. Prior to that, it was a sort of it was a sort of itinerant courts, kind of like others in. They would move around to different places, but Fasilides actually built the first castle in Gondar in 1632, I believe.
This one here.
Yeah.
And does somebody occupy it, or is it what is it function now? Is it?
Well, it's a museum, basically.
It's a museum.
Yeah.
What little tourism they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tourism attraction.
Yeah, I mean, you can go in, and the interesting features, like the king would not have, the emperor would not have an actual direct audience with people, because they were slightly afraid of them. So there was a sort of, he'd sit behind this. It was like a hole in the wall, and he would be behind that.
Okay.
So he had some kind of defense from.
So it looks like there's some ruins or some remnants here of something.
Well, actually, one thing that somebody said was that it was British artillery shells that had created that, but I think it actually predates that. The city was. Particularly this part was in a state of ruins because it was built in this is built in the 17th century. It had started to fall apart by then, and they moved the capital to further south.
Okay, let's just.
Okay, yeah.
Now, is this near the castle?
Yeah, this is Cusquam Palace. Cusquam was the palace of by then she was the Dowager Empress Mentawab. She was, her emperor husband had died, but she continued to be the sort of the power there.
Okay.
She was she acted as regent for her son, but this is supposedly she's buried with her grandchild and a child, and this is where James Bruce kind of comes in, because there was this smallpox plague when he got there.
Is that what got them, or got the child anyway?
Some of them. She didn't die because of that. She was still alive, but he helped. He basically just said, open the windows, let in some fresh air. But there was one thing that there were this is in ruins too, Cusquam Palace, and initially, we thought that that was the furthest target on that map. You remember I said the furthest target that was 9 miles away? We thought that's called Dunquam, and we thought that the British had got Cusquam and Dunquam confused on their map. That wasn't the case, we would find out, but that's what they thought.
Okay.
This is close to the Cusquam Palace.
Okay.
This is actually quarters for students who are there for Bible study, basically. They'll spend a couple of months.
So this is kind of like the Ethiopian version of a dormitory?
Yeah.
That's what you're...
Yeah.
Also, I should mention, Ethiopian is like steeped in just religion and mysticism.
Yeah.
There are over 600 monasteries in Ethiopia. 600.
Active.
And
I tell you here, I'm enjoying a cup of organic Sumatran coffee right here. And every morning, and sometimes later in the day, I will have a cup of coffee, and I will sweeten it with about a half of a teaspoon of the Pure Wave energized honey. So this is pretty much what I'm exclusively using as a sweetener now. And there's a number of reasons why I'm really enthusiastic about it. One is it's completely raw. It hasn't been heated. It's unprocessed. So it won't crystallize. Also, the fact that it's harvested from an area in Canada that's a very pristine ecosystem. So it's been independently tested. I've checked this out. It has no impurities, no glyphosate in it, which I definitely like. And as you know, we've had conversations before we ever met the 4RBs people talking about the crisis amongst bees and how important bees are to a functioning, healthy ecosystem. Almost 3/4 of the food that we eat ultimately depends on pollinization by the bees. Our friend Brent that we interviewed earlier in a Squaring the Circle told us about his work with electromagnetic fields and found that by using certain geometric configurations related ultimately to sacred geometry, interestingly, could definitely improve the health and lifespan of colonies and reduce the amount of colony collapse. And then by using the same system of electromagnetic fields in this energizer, hexagonal energizer that uses magnets in a configuration, in a tree of life configuration, they found that they can actually energize the honey. And this energized honey is the stuff that I've been using, and it's seems to be really good stuff.
a lot of them are at Lake Tana. They're on the islands of Lake Tana. They surround Lake Tana. And I know of no other country in the world other than like maybe Tibet that is steeped in this just kind of mystical, culture that's just ingrained in the culture. You see monks all over the place, these priests and these colorful robes, and it was just striking, just feeling. I've done a lot of travel. I've been to east and west. I've been to Tibet several times in Asia, and this struck me as comparable to, and that's why I think of it as the Tibet of Africa. There's so much deep mystical, energy and history and coming out of Ethiopia with like 600 monasteries. That's a pretty large number,
Yeah.
And it's a poor country, and they just have a top priority in supporting the monks and the priests and keeping these deep traditions going.
Okay, well, here we've actually gone hiking down the trail. It's actually called Sutherland Lane. If you look at the map, but there was this track it was just a mule track which they turned into passable to trucks that could pull the artillery, and so they went down there. And we're surrounded by the villagers who came out to meet us in Iba is the name of the village. And the one really extraordinary piece of evidence that we got there, when we first met with the village headman, he said, we were literally on this edge of this field, and he pointed over his shoulder and he said, "This is called Jambo Field, and this is where the British forces camped." And afterwards, I realized that the word Jambo does not exist in Amharic. So this was kind of like oral tradition communicating the fact that this is probably the word that they heard, because the troops in my father's unit, he was a white guy, but he was commanding African gunners from Nyasaland, now Malawi, and also from Kenya. And particularly from Kenya, they would have spoken Swahili. Jambo means hello in Swahili. And so it's the oral tradition preserving the fact that the British African troops came there.
Okay.
That just struck me as an amazing piece of.
So what are you pointing at here?
I'm pointing at Gondar, at their targets. So the ones that we walked to, Defecha Ridge, Deva, the one Dunkwam, the furthest one, and the last one, Maldiba. Those were the 4 targets that they systematically took out over the course of the day. Yeah. So I think we got some pictures of us with our. This is back in Gondar, looking the other direction, so that behind that furthest ridge, behind those kids' faces, that's where we were. That's where I'm pointing towards this direction.
I got it. I see. Yeah.
We're basically on the edge of Gondar here. Yeah.
What is this?
We drew large crowds everywhere we went. We were these exotic creatures that they probably hadn't seen people like us in years. In some of these villages, I don't think they'd seen tourists or white people.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I've always characterized you, Scott, as a exotic creature.
The whole village would come out and just start following us, and it was pretty crazy. It was fun,
Yeah. Okay.
It was festive. We were like this freak show that arrived on the scene.
Well, that was.
Everybody put everything down and just started following us wherever we went.
So this wasn't a local gang that was about to assault you?
No, we just interrupted their football game.
Oh, okay.
We asked them what the name of the ridge was there behind it to see if they knew.
Oh, okay.
And they did. Yeah.
You see, this boy has a cross right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is these are a nun and a monk in the saffron robes. And this was actually, we went there during Lent, and but they have this tradition of Ethiopians. You don't fast 40 days straight. You get the weekend off.
Oh, well, that's
so. And they drink this alcohol called Dela. And that's what she was offering us this. This is actually at the end of our hike up to that furthest target. We did actually find our way up there and found the equivalent of the defense fortifications up there that the Italians had built. And that was a pretty, to me, actually, that was one of the most poignant moments.
I can imagine, yeah.
Because, well, what it was, it realized when we were on Iba Ridge, well, this is where my father was, and he was firing. Now we were at the target itself. And on the map, there's it's written, 19 shells and guns were silenced. And, silence is one of those sort of euphemistic words. What does that mean? Did it mean that, the shells landed nearby and so the Italians took off, or was it a direct hit? And so, it was just body parts and the cannon just destroyed. And that was, to me at least, was the most like, okay, This is where war took place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this, I think I asked Scott earlier, this is a residence? Do people live in this thing? What is this function of this building? It is now, is that would be a family that lives there?
That's the monks' quarters.
Well, that's the monks' quarters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, behind us, where the camera is the church.
Oh,
Usually linked to the church, and that's what I mean. He mentioned that I think it's 400 active monasteries still. That's what Bitwaded, the guy we met, talked about. Yeah, 400.
I read somewhere online.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, that is the extraordinary thing, is that you keep running into these sort of. It's like the past and the present are like still continuous with each other.
Because this overlap between
because of monks and monasteries.
Traditional and modernity, all kind of. Yeah. And is that a dog in the background there?
The priest in the white robes.
What's this?
What?
It's a dog.
That is a dog. Okay.
But you can see the priest in the
on the edge of the frame.
To the right.
Yeah, right there. Okay.
His cross, and every priest has his own cross,
and
there are many elaborate different kinds of crosses. In fact, I have a variety. I don't know if you can get a shot of that at some point.
We would like to see
I brought
those.
back a bunch of different crosses.
We would definitely like to see that.
There's a cross for each church and each city. Each holy site has its own cross, unique cross. And the priests, carry them under their cloak. And then when an Ethiopian would approach a priest, they would stop and kind of bow, and the priest would take the cross out and give them a blessing, and then put it back under their cloak, and they would kiss the cross. Like with our armed our guards, every time we came across a priest as we're out in the field, they would go up to the priest, and he would take out his cross. He would bless them and.
Well, I think we have some documentary supporting evidence that you're telling the truth about that. So let's go on. Here we're inside the church.
Yes.
We should have started with the outside, but we were hurrying to get these loaded up so we could get going here and record. But this is the inside of the church. Now, look, the imagery here. What did you tell me earlier, Scott, about this imagery?
Well, those are saints and angels, and this is again one of the most famous churches in all of Ethiopia. You can see posters and postcards of the very scene of the ceiling.
The one thing that is interesting is it's that church design now is always, and has been for a couple of 100 years, circular, and this is a rectangular, and it's supposedly it's the shape of the ark is why they are.
I see. Well, yeah, okay.
And there's so that's one thing. The other thing is that they have the outside has 12 towers around the exterior wall for the 12 apostles. At the beginning, the gate is shaped in the form of a lion, which is the sort of the guardian. Also, it's the sort of imperial emblem too. Lion of Judah was Haile Selassie's title.
And that the whole Lion of the tribe of Judah plays an important part in the Masonic ritual. So
I need to also mention every Ethiopian church has a replica of the ark, and they keep it behind curtains, and no one's allowed to go back there other than the priest, even though it's a replica. And they're certain festivals at certain times of the year where they take the ark out, and then they'll parade around with it. And inside of each ark is what are called the tablets.
Yeah.
They're
tablets.
like these stones. Yeah. These sacred stones that are kept inside these replicas of the ark, and only one time a year in the Ethiopian religious calendar are they allowed to take these out and let the people see them and display them, and then they have to go back, and then they're put back behind the curtain, and no one's allowed to go behind the curtain.
Now, there's a style here, isn't there, of this art form?
Yeah,
that we
yeah. This
see?
is a uniquely Ethiopian iconographic style of art, and it goes way back.
We're going to see another example of that.
Earliest introduction of Christianity. Those are all angels. And I should also explain the Ethiopian canon. I don't have the exact figures in my head. I think the regular Christian canon and Catholic or Protestant canon has, I think, 64 books, something like that. The Ethiopian canon has like 88. It has all these extra canonical books that are not found in any other branch of Christianity, among which is the Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
Not least of which is the Book of Enoch. So they have books on angels. Angelology is a big study in Ethiopian scholarship. There are all these books just about angels and categories of angels and their positions and their roles and all that. So what you're seeing there is would come from one of these holy books of angels, and the iconography would come from that.
So who are these three guys?
I think that they were the tradition is that Christianity was brought to Ethiopia by, I think, Syrian monks in like the 3rd century AD. And Ethiopia became like the first country to become Christian. It's like the oldest church, I believe. Almost as old as the Church of Alexandria. I'm not clear about that. But it was these Syrian monks, and the church developed as a result of a schism. I think it was the Council of Chalcedon in like the 3rd or 4th century AD. There was a schism, and the Ethiopian church then developed in its own very unique way. And the bringers of Christianity, that may be the representative of these Syrian monks that came from Syria that introduced Christianity in Ethiopia.
Yeah, here we are about to set off down Sutherland Lane.
Okay.
So we're back in this is going to the battery's position. And what is amazing is that the road today is probably in worse shape than it was during World War II. I mean, they had some engineers who managed to make it passable for trucks. This is as far as we could go by our 4-wheel drive vehicle. And we'd previously there was a bridge which was just gone, and we had to kind of go down into the riverbed and climb back up the other side. But here they just said, okay, now you're on your own, you're on foot. And so the last 3 miles down to that village where, that Ibar, where the groups came out to meet us, that's 3 miles away from here. So we're about to set off with Alamu and Johannes, our two.
Alamu is on the left.
Alamu's on the right.
Oh, okay.
He's the older guy. I actually interviewed him after you left. He fought, first of all, he's been a soldier all his life, since about the age of 18. And he fought, and there was this long war that Ethiopia fought against Eritrea, which was ended in 2020. That's when Abiy Ahmed got the Nobel Prize for ending that war.
He's
the current president.
Yeah, Prime Minister.
Prime Minister of Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was in that, and he was sort of invalided out. He got a grenade in the chest.
Ooh.
So, but he got back, and currently he's in the Gondar militia. That's where these two work. That's their day job, and this was their additional job.
Okay.
Yeah. We had met the villagers, and the headman had explained this was Jambo Field, back where those guys behind us are. And he said, okay, I'm going to take you to where the battery was positioned. And we set off towards the edge of that Ibar Ridge, and that's where they're taking us. And these are basically just villages, and the numbers just get increased the closer we got to
They
the
would just
further
come
we
out of
went.
nowhere.
Yeah,
It's like they would just materialize out of nowhere, and then the crowd would grow to
and
like
some
a
of them
snowball,
were.
you know, until
It was little kids. It was old guys with sticks who were like, "What are these two white dudes doing here?" And these two guys with guns. I mean, it was like
the occasional woman walking with something on her, like a big basket on her head.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a scene right out of a it's right out of a movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
No, this is. I think this was the church.
This was in Gulgura.
Lake Tana.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he's covering up some sacred art there.
Yeah,
and it looks
exactly.
like
These are precious paintings that go way back.
Yeah, look, that's
Earliest days of Christianity in Ethiopia.
This is 14th century.
Yeah, so this
The
would
previous one with all the angels up on the ceiling, that's 16th century. So this is earlier.
So that's Mary with the
So they keep
Christ child.
Covered. They're sacred. They're covered, and they usually, and then they'll reveal them at certain times of the year or whatever.
There we go.
There we go. And so there's Jonathan getting his daily blessing from the priest.
Well, better than that. This is the 135-year-old monk.
Yeah, 135-year-old monk. Still a monk.
He's a bit younger than Enoch, but you know.
135 years. Okay, so there's hope then. I like that because that makes me feel not so old then. Because 135.
That's what they told us.
135. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want it to be true.
Yeah.
But he looks like a fairly jovial fellow.
He had this sparkle in his eye that, you know, you
And
wouldn't
I noticed when you guys were walking in that you had this kind of this glow around you, and
It's
kind of an aura like
2 years.
That's it, and that was just the residual, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We have to go back for a recharge. Yeah.
Well, I had this dream last night that I was out, and it probably had something to do with talking to Scott. I was out with somebody, and I can't remember who it was, but some person, and we're walking across this open land, and we're walking. He says, well, if we walk just this much further, we'll be there. And then the next thing I know is I kind of rise up, and I go, well, why walk if we can float? So I was floating, and he was walking, whoever it was, and I would imagine that's what was going on with you after this moment here, right? You were floating to your next destination.
Yeah, I was becoming the flying African.
So is he holding it up to your face? What's he doing? What do you do?
Yeah, put it to your cheek.
Oh, to your cheek? Okay.
Either side of your head, really. Yeah, both sides. Yeah.
Now, by contrast, so we go from there. He's got it's a cross like thing, right?
Yeah, something like this. You know,
oh, okay, good. Yeah, there we go.
I brought back a whole variety of these crosses.
I would like to look at some of those, and this is as good a time as any.
So, you know, they have them under their cloak, and then they pull it out, and then you go up, and he touches you on your head, and then you kiss it, and it's this whole ritual formality, and
can I hold it?
Sure.
And the design of the cross is unique to each particular place.
Each region, each church, each sacred area, you know.
Can you zero in on this, Rowan?
Yeah, give it to Scott.
Give it back to Scott. Okay.
So there would be a name for this exact cross. And this design, it's all very precise.
I can see that.
The iconography is very precise, and there's like a code.
No, I love it. I do.
Code. Here, and they're you can go online. They're scholarly studies of these crosses and what each one means and all that, with each region where it would come from. You know, like this one. Let me.
Rowan, why don't you come and hand them?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So hand me that one too. So this, I believe, is it's either a Gondor or a Lalibela cross, and it would be on top of a staff.
Oh, okay.
So the stick would go in here, and same with this. This would, And
I think this one you got in Gondar.
which one?
This one.
Okay.
At the
And
market.
This would be Lalibela.
this might be a Lalibela cross. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it has, it's a very distinct shape. And every Ethiopian would know exactly what these crosses were, where they came from, how they were used. And they're very elaborate and ornate.
Yeah, I see
Beautiful.
that. And the sort of
Yeah, it
the
looks like animals.
looks like almost some kind of fowl, waterfowl
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those two are very nice.
Oh yeah, these are definitely Gondar. I got those at the market.
Yeah, we got these in the market. These were you could wear these around your neck.
Raise them up just a bit, Scott. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, Scott, you'd wear these as earrings.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize, Scott. No, this is nice.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, look at. Yeah, I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
So you guys had to smuggle these out of the country?
Well,
You jest, but
okay,
there was
never
a
mind. We
story
never
which-
stop.
out. We got almost everything out that I was wanting to bring back, and with had a little snag.
Oh, just a little one.
Yeah, I purchased all this stuff. They're very concerned about looting. People have been coming to Ethiopia for
Sure.
generations.
Okay, I get that. That
Looting
makes.
the monasteries, stealing manuscripts.
Yeah.
Ethiopian manuscripts are like these priceless.
Yeah.
They are. There's a manuscript tradition in Ethiopia that hasn't been broken since the Middle Ages, where they hand copy all these holy books, and they're all different sizes, and like I said, they're all these other books that are not in the regular Christian canon. They have all these other canonical books, so. Ethiopia's been a target of looters and black market and looting the monasteries. It's a very poor country, and they do everything they can to stop this. So they're pretty strict about what you can take out of the country, and they want to know what's leaving the country. So we kind of get ahead of ourselves. But when we were, I bought these crosses here. And some other items, and then I purchased these paintings, these scrolls of right from the actual painter himself, and I got them in Lalibela, and these beautiful long goat skin paintings with all the same iconography you saw on the roof of the.
I think we all have a picture of that artist, don't we?
Yeah, you'll see it later.
Yeah.
And he has a painting school and a school of icon painting, and so I had a bunch of this stuff in my bag. We're at the airport in Addis Ababa, ready to head back, and our plane is literally loading. We had to go through various checkpoints, and I got through every one, no problems, and they looked at opened the bag and. We get the last checkpoint, and he's ahead. You're ahead
Yeah,
of
I
me.
was ahead of you.
And
Yeah.
so I had to go through this last little checkpoint here. I thought, okay, everything's great, and the plane is literally loading, and this woman opens my bag and she sees my paintings in there. They were rolled up in these little tight little rolls here. And she said, "Do you have papers for this?" I said, "No. I mean, I got this right from the priest artist who painted them in front of the churches of Lalibela. He didn't hand me a receipt or anything. I just paid for them, and that was it. I couldn't show proof that I wasn't taking them from looting one of the monasteries. That these were national relics that had to stay in Ethiopia. She confiscated them from me. Just broke my heart, blew my mind. So, but I got all this other stuff back, and then this became a whole ordeal. I as soon as I landed in Washington D.C., I went right to the Ethiopian consulate to tell them what happened. I wanted my paintings back. I wasn't taking any out of the country illegal. I'd purchased them from the artist, and and I met with the consul in D.C. We had to stop in D.C. to go back to Atlanta. He was going to try to get them back. He was contacting the security at the airport, and he had no luck. I ended up back in Atlanta. Anyway, long and short of it, I had to contact my guide in Lalibela. I told him what happened. So he went back to that artist and he commissioned paintings for me. And I got an actual painting of Enoch as a result of this, which I'll show you later. And it took about a year to arrange, and back and forth, and I had to wire money, and there's a war, and the internet's down, and we can't, and there's no communication, and this has gone on for almost a year.
And so they paused the war to get you your painting.
Well, it was literally the whole internet would be down in Lalibela for like a week, and I wouldn't hear anything, and then it would come back up, and then there was bombing over here, and he would send me these horrible, like he sent me a news video from like BBC, how he had like a bunch of friends that were at a bus stop, and they were massacred by a drone strike, because there was all this insurgency going on. It was just awful. I ended up getting 6 new paintings.
6?
He went back, well, because that's what I originally had confiscated.
Oh.
So he went back to the original artist, told him about what happened, and I said, I tell him I want an icon of Enoch. So he painted it especially for me, just an Enoch painting. Anyway,
well, that's
it ended happily ever after. After about a year of going through
good
crazy stuff.
Well, we better continue on here because I think we got 20 minutes left.
Okay.
All right. So we see one of your guards there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what I should do is probably, because kind of, as I said, we've talked about, here the battery got down to this part on Iber Ridge where they had these 4 targets. So by 4 o'clock that day, all of those 4 targets had been destroyed, and a combination of British Commonwealth troops, so they're Africans primarily from Kenya, from Uganda, from Malawi, from West Africa even, they moved in towards Gondar because the defenses were folding. But actually the first group to get into Gondar, and we went to it's the old Italian town hall that's still there, and that's where General Nasi, who was the Italian commander, that was his headquarters. And this group they're called the Wallabanda, they were basically patriot fighters, and they made it there was I mentioned way back when we started that this guy Wingate had created this.
Yeah.
So one of his British officers was in command of this Wallabanda group, and they just went hell for leather. There's supposed to be a 2-day battle, Gondar. They captured some forts further down from the ones we saw, and then they just took off, and they went all the way into the city, and they forced General Nasi to surrender. He actually wouldn't surrender to them, but this armored car group who had been came up late, sort of shortly afterwards, they surrendered to them because the Italians didn't want to surrender to a Ethiopian force. It was, they needed to surrender to Europeans. And that was at that point, the last message went out from that, Gondar was on the radio. Mussolini heard that, we cannot resist any further, was what Nasi broadcast. So
they recaptured.
They recaptured Gondar that afternoon. And at that point, Ethiopia, since it was the last stronghold that Mussolini had, at that point, Ethiopia was free.
So here's some more artwork. I'm trying to see what we are actually looking at here. You guys probably don't
This is
know.
back at that Gogora church, the really old one. I'm pretty sure. And this is not Lalibela, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these photos.
Okay, well, let's just keep going here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Alamu.
That's
I mean,
Alamu there.
And you know, one really interesting thing he said, when we were on that first ridge, the first when we went hiking up, we got to the side and we went to look down to where the British Commonwealth troops came out, and that was the hardest ridge to capture. They just ran into all kinds of Italian fire. There were booby traps and what have you, but they managed. But the 54th Nyasaland Field Battery managed to send out 76 shots in like a matter of minutes and destroyed that fort. And this guy, when I told him this story about why I was there, he said, your father fought beside our fathers that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was him.
Beautiful panorama. Does this canyon have a name?
Wunania. Wunania
Okay.
is what it's called, and I don't know what that means.
I remember just looking at that vista and just feeling just this primeval, in time.
Yeah.
Ages, millennia, millions of years, you just picture,
Yeah, and that's back up on Iber Ridge with the village surrounding us.
They're all out there to see the freaks.
Yeah, I felt a bit like the Pied Piper going out there, and you hope you weren't going to disappoint people. But Kibram, our guide, he actually showed them that photograph of my father with his.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a big, sort of this size of a picture that I had.
Now, did they think that Scott was a movie star? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, as Scott was saying, with these young kids as well, it wasn't just Yeah, it was a real mixture. And and so that's with Wunania behind us.
Okay, yeah.
So that was the end of. This was definitely a climactic day, going down that track and finding, Jambo Field, and all there were. I mean, he had this. He said at the end of it, he said, "Beats going on a cruise." Yeah.
All right. So then we go to Lalibela, and that's where here's Scott about to get on the airplane and embark for Lalibela.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I should explain. Okay, I learned about Lalibela before I went on the trip. When I did my crash course in Ethiopia, about these churches that were carved out of solid stone, straight down into the earth.
Yeah, we got to see those before we.
Wonders of the world.
Yeah.
And I never heard of this, and I realized if I'm going to Ethiopia, I've got to see these things. If I go into Egypt and not go into the pyramids. So Jonathan had to stay in Gondar. He had more work and research to do, and there was I met a couple in our hotel, two couples, a couple from Austria, husband and wife, and then a mother and son from Slovenia, like adventure travelers that had come to Ethiopia in the middle of a war, like crazy people to do something like these. They're the only other European white people we had seen literally the whole time we had been there, and we kind of, just connected at the hotel lobby, and they were. I wanted to go to Lalibela, and they were ready to go. And they asked if I would join them, and I said, perfect. So we went down and just bought a plane ticket. Had to go downtown and got the next flight. There was only like one flight a week, and it just happened to be the next morning, and I got on the flight to Lalibela. So I was just very happy about that.
And this is your hotel.
It's from the balcony from my
Oh
hotel,
my gosh, look at that.
Just extraordinary.
This is the morning?
No, I think that was sunset.
Sunset? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
It looks greener than Gondar.
Yeah, it was.
And how long were you here in Lalibela?
I had 4 days.
4 days, okay.
And this is what we saw on day one.
And this is what? What is happening
This is a
here?
scene just right out of the Old Testament. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
This was not a Cecil B. DeMille
It was not a
movie.
movie set. This was absolutely, authentically real. We arrived on. There are many holy days in the Ethiopian church. This was St. Michael's Day. So these were pilgrims who had come all over Ethiopia. Many had walked by foot. I mean, literally, how long, by bus, by walking, by whatever, to gather at the churches of Lalibela on this holy day, St. Michael's Day. And we just happened to get there at that time. And we were so fortunate that the timing was just perfect. And we hadn't planned it this way. Me and the other people I was with, there we were. And I was just without words. I was, the feeling of where you're walking around and this church. This is so interesting that they have rituals and ceremonies that predate Christianity. There were many Jews living in Ethiopia that practice a form of Judaism that goes back to the first temple of Solomon. It predates the so-called what we call the Second Temple Judaism. They have religious practices and rituals and observances that go back directly to the first temple of Judaism, which is King Solomon's temple. So there, and this Ethiopian church has also these rituals that go back even to ancient Egypt that are not even pre-Christian. So it's like a time capsule that is preserved in all kinds of stuff.
So I'm just thinking here, you guys went over there, like I see that you got on the airplane and you flew from Gondar to Lalibela. And then I'm thinking by contrast, James Bruce. How did he travel?
Oh, yeah.
By
horse.
Horse. So we're in a kind of an interesting time now because not too many generations ago, just to be able to travel and participate in this society would have been much more difficult.
In Ethiopia?
Yeah, I mean, obviously
because of violence.
No, not so much. Just because
they didn't have roads.
We didn't roads and airplanes and boats and the stuff that we can travel now. I just was at the Azores.
Oh, sure.
And 100 years ago, there were no flights to the Azores. I would have had to take a boat for 3 to 4 weeks minimum. And so what's happening, I think, is we're seeing this kind of cross-cultural fertilization going on here. That's, I think, very interesting, and hopefully in the long run will turn out to be a very positive thing. That, so much of it, in a sense, you guys going there were, in a way, were almost like ambassadors. All these people, probably you guys were the first white people a lot of them had seen, right? Maybe?
Well,
the children?
They've had little spurts of tourism over the years.
But like those kids.
Like going out to the village in Ibar is probably,
exactly.
I doubt if they'd seen white people there.
And you guys leave, and hopefully you've made a favorable impression on these people, and next time some more white people come, they'll, I think that's a good thing. I really admire you guys for making this trip.
Well, actually, I need to backtrack real quickly and tell something that happened on Lake Tana. Roman, could you give me that book? the black book.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Which one?
The black
one.
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So everywhere we would go, whenever it was appropriate, you know, I brought my Book of Enoch with me. You know.
Yeah.
My, you know, hardbound cover, beautiful cover. It's written in Geese script, you know, and I've had this for many, many years. And I brought this with me to Ethiopia. And whenever it was appropriate, I would bring it out. I'd show it to the priests, you know, let them know I was interested in Enoch, and you know, I'd like to, you know, see what the reaction would be and what they could tell me. And when we were about to, when we were going to Lake Tana, you know,
It's the Mandaba Monastery.
yeah, there was a.
It's on a peninsula there.
Well, you wanted to explore the ruins of a castle.
Yeah,
And that was sort of as a base for the Jesuit priests.
that's right. Susenyos's palace is what
Right.
it was.
So
yeah.
the Vatican or whatever had sent Jesuits to Ethiopia to try to reconvert them back into Catholicism. You know, and so on Lake Tana, on this one island were these ruins that was like a Jesuit.
Yeah, it was a
headquarters.
combination palace and, like you said, Jesuit
You know,
center for
headquarters
for
disseminating-
proselytizing.
Exactly, for the proselytizing work. But before we boarded the boat, we were touring that church monastery there, and then I brought out my Book of Enoch. We met with the priest and we sat down. And I showed him my Book of Enoch, and then and the keeper of the monastery was there. He was like
The abbot.
the abbot.
Yeah.
He saw me do this, and then we walked down to the dock to get on the boat, and the abbot came with us on the boat, and it was a 2-hour boat ride to get to this island, 2 hours one way and then 2 hours back. So about an hour into it, he saw my interest in the Book of Enoch, and he started talking. He spoke English, and he started talking. And he said, "I need to tell you something. The Book of Enoch is a very precious book in our culture." And my curiosity was like, where was the original Book of Enoch kept? The ones that Bruce copied when he visited Ethiopia, like the original manuscript.
But just as a reminder, James Bruce was the one who brought the books of Enoch out and introduced them to the Western world,
He
essentially.
made 3 copies,
Reintroduced them.
brought them back to Europe. Gave one to Oxford, one to maybe the University of Paris.
Okay.
3 of them. And this is the biblical bombshell of the time, like the Dead Sea Scroll discovery in the 1940s. It was huge. So my curiosity was, where was the original manuscript that Bruce saw, in which he copied these copies that he brought back to Europe. And I wouldn't dare ask that question, because I realized it was just such a priceless, kind of a topic, and a touchy topic too, because people, they have to keep these things hidden from the public, So anyway, we got on the boat. We're about an hour into it, and he said, "I need to tell you, the Book of Enoch is one of like 4 or 5 very holy books that we have that need to be protected at all costs." And he said, each one of these books is entrusted to a monk who literally guards it with his life. And he takes that manuscript and he rotates between 4 different islands or different monasteries with his book. He's assigned this book for life, and he has to protect it. And he has to rotate with these other monks who have these other manuscripts between these different monasteries. So no one knows exactly where they are at any given time, to hide them from any looters or the outside world. And when he told me this, I thought, oh my God, he's telling me something that's like very highly classified information. This is incredible. And because he saw I was genuinely interested in this, so I thought, this is very, very interesting that he's telling me this information. We finally get to the location, this island. We explore the ruins there. And before we leave, he said, by the way, would you want to stop on the way back to the car at this monastery that's I think it was a little out of the way. It wasn't in our itinerary my memory. I said, well, I mean, sure, let's do this, right? So anyway,
go ahead.
We get in the boat. We go to this.
Oh, on the way back on the boat.
On the way back, yeah.
Yeah.
He brought it up. He said, would you like to stop at a monastery on the way back? And it was not part of the itinerary. I said, sure, let's do it. Let's go there.
Yeah.
So we get there. There was a big monastery on the island, and we meet with the head priest there, and we're chit-chatting, and he's telling us about we're learning the history of this particular monastery. And I showed him my book of Enoch. I brought it out there, and the head abbot of the monastery said to me, the original Book of Enoch is at our monastery right now. We have it here.
Yeah. And more than that, he said that, but you can't see it because somebody tried to break in and steal it. So we've had to put it's not in our, quote, museum now. We're going to have to build a more secure location for it.
Wow.
Yeah, he said we currently have it here. And I said, you mean the original manuscript? He said, yes, we have it here. So and I didn't dare ask to see it because I didn't think it would be appropriate.
Right.
And then he said to me, when he looked at my book, he said, "Can I have this? Can I have your book?" And I thought for a minute. I said, "Okay, I'll trade you my book for your manuscript." And we all had a good laugh. Oh. And then we got on the boat and left.
Oh, okay.
Went back to it.
So it just, since we're running out of time, it's too bad we don't really have the time to dive into the book itself. Maybe at some point, Scott, you'd be willing to come back and we could do that.
Do a part two, yeah.
Do a part two if your studies go back for years into this book. And like I told you, I read it in the 70s and I don't remember hardly any of it. But then when I started reviewing it to kind of get prepped for this, some of it started coming back to me. And I'm remembering some of the stuff and I'm thinking, when I was looking at this before, what was I, 18, 19, 20 years old? Mm-hmm. So I need to really take another dive into it because I think I would see things that I completely wouldn't have seen. And already just from what I've looked at, I started seeing some things that started ringing bells from other, I've read some of the other apocryphal texts and the Nag Hammadi books and the Dead Sea Scrolls, but had not taken a relook at the Book of Enoch. But now, after all of our conversation and knowing the role that Enoch plays in the Masonic ritual, I'm going, okay, I got some homework to do.
It's like a key that will unlock a lot of
I
mysteries.
think you're right.
It's crucially important. And when Bruce brought it back to Europe, that was like the beginning of a whole new era and level of biblical scholarship and unlocking some of these mysteries.
Yeah. Revival of the mystery tradition, kind of.
And then it needs to be seen in the context of, who produced this material? As we mentioned, there are 3 books of Enoch. This is the most famous because it's quoted verbatim in the New Testament. Yeah. So this is the Ethiopian Enoch. There's also what's called the Slavonic Enoch, and then the Hebrew Enoch. There was a whole body of literature that was very important. It was produced. There's a lot of scholarship now about this, and the pieces are starting to come together.
Awesome stuff. Well, we got to look at these churches. Even if it takes us another 5 minutes, we got to look at these churches. Now, my first glance when I was seeing this as a thumbnail, I couldn't see the people standing on the edge of the cliff there, and it looked to me like you were standing next to something that was like the size of a coffin or something. It looked it was misleading. It looked to me like it was 5 feet wide, and then when I got the full picture, I go, wait a minute, no, this is somehow the perspective here. But now we'll go into some of the other pictures where you can really begin to see the scale of this thing. Now, this is not a typical constructed edifice here, is it?
Not by any means.
So
that is a single piece of stone. It's cut out of the rock.
It's cut out of the virgin rock. That's incredible.
Inside that is a complete temple, a complete cathedral with, cathedral ceilings and doorways and chambers, and it's a like a Gothic cathedral inside, carved out of one single block of stone.
One single block of stone.
It's
So
not stone on stone.
right.
You make one mistake, you just how do you fix a mistake like that? You can't just get rid of a stone and find or cut another one. This is one single block of stone. You got to get it right the first time. There are 11 of these churches at Lalibela. They were built in the 12th century by King Lalibela. Okay, and as the story goes, they were being besieged by Arab Muslim invaders, and the Christians of Ethiopia were no longer allowed to go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So King Lalibela wanted to build his own New Jerusalem in Ethiopia, so they didn't have to risk going to Jerusalem in the Middle East. And the story goes, in 23 years, with the help of angels, they carved out these 11 stone churches out of solid block.
With the help of angels.
That's the story.
Okay, now what in the world could the origin of that tradition be? If we assume that there's some reality behind that, what does that mean? I don't know.
But they are a testament of what they are there in stone, like the pyramids of Egypt. They are there now. The sun got there in a very short period of time. How did they do that? They don't have a clue. It's mind-boggling. Oh, by the way, under these this whole complex is these underground labyrinths, tunnels and labyrinths that
really
connect. Oh yeah, and they're still discovering passageways. And one tradition is that these were built to house the Ark of the Covenant. Originally, at one time, the Ark was, and it was secreted in these passageways in these temples, and then it's no longer there. That was one of the legends about why these were built in the first place, was to house the Ark.
Well, I think there's a couple more, but in our hurry, because we were short on time and I was loading up the presentation, they got a little out of order. But I believe this guy was an artist.
He's the icon painter.
Painter.
That I bought the paintings from, and that's his school, and those are his students. They're all learning. They're reading from sacred books and they're chanting. It's very.
Okay.
I have a video that goes with that, and you can hear them all singing.
Yeah, I took this as a still from the video.
Yeah, and it's a painting school.
He's teaching how to paint this style of icon.
Ethiopian iconic style.
Okay.
Of art. Yeah.
I think we got here we go. Here's the interior of the church.
Look at the angles, the perfect curvatures and all that. That's out of one single block of stone.
What type of stone is it?
I forgot, basalt or some. It's some.
Oh, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's a hard stone. It's not easily carved.
It's not sandstone.
How did they do that? With what kind of instruments could have got? Architectural. Here are a couple of my favorite pictures. On the left, I just love that picture. That's
one of the priests.
Yeah.
And what's this guy doing?
This is a ceremony that I stumbled into in one of the churches.
Oh, the woman giving birth?
Yeah, she'd already given birth.
She'd given birth
like a day or two before, and her women sisters were now coming to get blessings. I forgot where they had come from. They'd walked for 2 days or something.
Oh, wow!
Infant to get blessings from this priest at this. I think this was the Church of St. George. That's the church in the shape of a cross.
Okay.
And this is I have video that goes along with that, and that's incense.
So this is the blessing of the child
here. It's part of this whole elaborate ceremony that was going on.
Okay. So they allowed you in there to witness, and they allowed you to video, and.
I just had to be kind of discreet, but I was just so.
Yeah. Okay. This woman here, she might be like, who's this guy?
But they just let me.
Okay.
And again, I was the only white person around. Actually, I was by myself at this point. My fellow travelers were not with me, and I was there for this went on for 45 minutes or so. This is another These are priests chanting from holy books inside one of the temples.
And this is one of those carved churches.
Yeah.
That are inside of here. Wow.
One of the carved churches inside one of the rooms.
Okay.
And these churches had multiple rooms and levels, and another one of the carved churches.
Now that one has
the outer facade is actually recent because they're trying to preserve these churches, and you can see it's actually stone on stone, and that was a recent addition to help preserve.
Yeah, there's an interesting story about this one. So, Haile Selassie, the last sort of major battle that really was sort of the end for Ethiopia's independence from the Italians was at a place called Maichu, I think it's called, which is in the north of Ethiopia. And after the battle, he went to this church and spent several days there, basically trying to decide what to do. And he spent, after those days, he left, he went back to Addis, and then he left the country. But he did spend several days in
this church here.
Yes.
And at that point, were the pillars constructed around it at that point, or is that more recent?
No,
I mean, they look pretty pristine, but I can't.
I mean, I assume this has been here since the 6th. When is it? Lalibela is the 13th.
Well, no. That outer facade of pillars that was recent. And
That's
it was
recent
done by like French archaeologists, and you can see the metal structure that's
you can see
up above it. You can see the covering up here.
To preserve these churches. So I believe I was told that those outer pillars were done, not that long ago, to help preserve it.
Okay.
But the inner structure was all the church.
And this is some of the carving on the pillars. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, this is inside. Probably, I think the Church of St. George, the one in the shape of a cross.
Okay.
That's looking straight up. The one on the left is looking
straight up into I can see that. Yeah. So this is actually the column here.
Those are two columns.
And this is the archway. We're looking up into the bottom of the arch. Got it.
Overhead.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow.
And
that's when you are now, you are being initiated into the priesthood, and you'll soon be going back to assume your duties as a high priest of the temple.
You got to start at the bottom. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. But look at this over here on the left. That's inside.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing. All carved out of a solid block.
I believe it was in some of the windows, if I'm not mistaken, that they detected some Templar imagery.
Okay, I'd like to know more about that. I definitely would. So, okay, and here you are, and this book here, you're holding this book. There's something vaguely familiar about this book you're holding. So
this priest, this is we had a guide, and this is when I was with the rest of the group. And so we'd gone through the various rooms and chambers and everything. And then we went into this one room. There was this big curtain, and there were some chairs there. And we just all sat down. And then he asked, through our translator, we had a guide, if we had any questions. So I asked, okay, the Book of Enoch has been part of the Ethiopian canon from the beginning. I wanted to know, how is it studied in the monasteries? Because it's obviously a living tradition. It's not a lost book in Ethiopia. So he started to explain to me how the training goes on in the monasteries. And he told me that there are the monks, there are 10 levels of training. The novitiate, which is the monk. You start at the first, and at each level of these 10 levels, when you complete each level, you acquire a paranormal power as you go through this monastic training. And you go through level 1. He said after you complete level 1, you can actually read the minds of other monks. This is what he told me. Level 2, you acquire this. Level 3, and at each level of study, you are studying different books and texts and holy books, and your daily regime is like a monk in any monastery. You're praying. You're doing, your daily routine, ritual meditations, and all of that. When you get to the 10th level, that's when you study the Book of Enoch. It's reserved for the monks who get to the highest 10th level.
Wow.
And he said the Book of Enoch is called the star of the Ethiopian canon. The star. And when they reach the 10th level and they study the Book of Enoch, if they complete that, the power they get is they can bilocate.
That would be a kind of a cool power to have.
I don't know what to make of that information.
See, then if that would solve the problem we were talking about earlier, if I could just like bilocate to the Azores.
Sure.
Or
I'd never heard of anything like that.
And this kind of captures what you were talking about earlier, this juxtaposition of the modern and the biblical traditional. And high tech. There they are, with their cell phones, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you go in
and glasses.
Yeah. And there's your icons.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of those that were then confiscated at the airport.
They were confiscated at the airport.
Had to get new ones. Took about a year to get new ones sent to me.
Here we go. Exterior shot. You can really get the scale of this thing.
So this is St. George's, right?
Yeah, and that's King Lalibela.
That's King Lalibela there.
12th century.
Yeah. And who's this?
I'm not sure.
We don't know. Okay, well, I think that's it. Oh, yeah, there you are. You're getting blessed. Okay.
I have one last thing that I'd like
to
say.
Please.
It's just a quote that I have at the very beginning of my book.
Yeah, your book is available now?
It is. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually, the release date is March 31st.
Okay,
So it's 6 weeks away.
6 weeks away, cool. But it will be available. Right. I'm looking forward to reading that book.
Yeah, and so what I have two quotes at the beginning, but one of them I think is really stuck with me.
Okay.
It's from Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
In his long walk to freedom, and what he says is, Ethiopia has a special place in my imagination, and the prospect of visiting Ethiopia attracted me more strongly than a trip to France, England, and America combined. I felt I'd be visiting my own genesis, unearthing the roots of what made me an African. And I think that he kind of strikes this sort of, there's something unique about Ethiopia that I guess the only other place I've been to sort of like it is Egypt. So it's got this sort of intrinsic quality all of its own.
Yeah.
And I think that's what affects you by going there.
Okay.
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
it's good for me too, because I am an African.
Yeah.
We'll get to talk about this more, I hope, Scott.
That's a good image too.
Yeah, the Book of the Watchers, the machinery of the cosmos. Of the
universe. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what you saw.
I'm guessing.
Gears and wheels and.
Yeah. I think that's could be Jonathan. Did you ever go native and don the national garb, like? Lawrence of Arabia did?
Yeah. I can't say I have, but why not?
Well, all right, gentlemen, this has been great, very informative.
Well, I hope this puts Ethiopia on people's maps.
Well, I think we'll get,
people don't think about it.
Right, they don't.
There's not much awareness of it. It's been a war-torn country for years.
It's also the second largest country by population in Africa.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
120 million plus.
Oh, wow.
But it has these spiritual treasures just waiting for us to.
Yeah. Like you said, like sort of like the Tibet
it's like
of Africa.
One treasure after another as I dug into it and then experienced it. I just
Right.
still in awe of what I discovered there.
Right. And so I'm so now very interested in their, like you said, they've got all of these books, the apocryphal texts that are not part of the traditional canon. I really want to dive into that.
Oh yeah, and this
I'll start with this one. Yeah,
right back to
right
King
back.
Solomon.
Yeah.
And, yes.
Okay, well, gentlemen, Jonathan,
Thank you.
it's been a pleasure.
You too.
Scott, always good to see you again, old friend. Yeah.
We'll do this again.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us and hanging in there, and we will see you on the next episode of Squaring the Circle.